Want to expand the reach of your content? Start a podcast. Feature industry experts on your show and leverage the influence and reach of your guests to grow your brand. Learn more at sweetfishmedia.com.
You're listening to the B2B Growth Show, a podcast dedicated to helping B2B executives achieve explosive growth. Whether you're looking for techniques and strategies or tools and resources, you've come to the right place. I'm James Carberry.
And I'm Jonathan Green.
Let's get into the show.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Here with another killer guest, Jamie Shanks. Jamie, thanks for taking the time talking to us today.
Thank you so much for the invite.
Absolutely. So Jamie is the CEO of Sales for Life and also author of the best-selling book, Social Selling Mastery. So Jamie, tell us just a little bit more about you, what you guys do at Sales for Life, and also about your book, which is amazing, by the way. It was one of the first things that John put on my desk when I started working here.
Fantastic. So we are the world's leader at social selling and digital sales training. Very simply, what we do is we migrate or transition sales professionals from an analog sales world to a digital sales world, and we do that at scale, intermixing, it's called blended learning. So virtual instructor-led coaching and e-learning to ensure that the sales professional can learn a new skill, and that learning translates into action, and that action translates into results. And we've now trained 75,000 sales professionals around the globe, 300 global customers. So we've become the de facto standard for the topic of social and digital.
Nice. I love it. So we have a lot to cover today in the short 20 minutes, and I just want to dive right in. Let's talk about how to align your team around a social strategy. Sometimes people say it's all, marketing's responsibilities. Sometimes you see sales people go rogue on their own on social, which kind of can get them into trouble. How do we align our entire organization around a social strategy?
Okay, so you're going to have three business units that have to come together, and we call them the three amigos. And the three amigos are going to be the global vice president of sales, or the chief revenue officer, the global vice president of marketing, or the CMO, and the chief learning officer, or the vice president of sales enablement. You cannot have a unified social strategy that can go global. And when I mean global, you may only have 5 sales professionals in your whole team, but it means entire organization. So synonymous with the word global will be entire sales organization. And all three play an integral part. And here's how they all function. The sales leader is critical because it's the concept of lead a horse to water, but now that leader has to take the first sip. You can't ask people to do things you're not willing to do yourself. And number 2, the sales professionals report under the sales leader, not enablement, not marketing. So the sales professionals need to see that their frontline sales managers are doing this, and that the frontline sales managers are coaching and keeping accountability to the daily digital activities. The second group is marketing. Marketing's job is to support the social sellers in the field. Think of it like creating an army of content distributors. Well, now the generals behind the scenes, the marketing team, needs to create insights or content with a purpose that converts. They need to organize that content that's sales-centric. They need to help that content get discovered into the customer's hands, and they need to help evaluate the engagement of that content and teach sales what content's working, what's not, when to use it, when not. And then finally is enablement. Enablement's role is to be the glue between sales and marketing, to put together the people, process, and technology that can get the digital seller ready from a skill standpoint and a tech stack standpoint. You cannot be a digital seller without either of those two plays. You need the skills, and you're going to need the proper tech stack to perform. So that's the role of the three amigos. And if you eliminate even one of those pillars, especially at a mid-market or global company, the entire process fails.
Got it. I love that. And I don't think sales enablement gets, enough seat at the table these days. So talk a little bit about the role of sales enablement and how it is that glue, like you said, between sales and marketing.
Sales enablement's seat at the board table is a function of it being new in an organization, but most importantly, it's the fault of the sales enablement leader. And I say that without sounding too harsh. Most sales enablement leaders are trainers. They are not divisional leaders. Where I'm seeing it fail is a sales enablement leader is hired, and they bring in the same playbooks that worked for them in the 20th century. They are analog coaches and trainers. And so they try to throw workshops at the problem. They start buying tools and just praying that people roll them out. I'll give you the perfect example is employee advocacy tools. So one of the first things they'll do is just say, let's get everybody engaged with content. Let's go spend all this money on an employee advocacy tool. But they haven't created the right mindset or the skill set internally to even be able to leverage the tools properly. So the reason that they're treated like the redheaded stepchild is because they're not coming at the problem from an executive mindset on, what's going to move the needle for the business, what's the business case, what are the outcomes we're trying to achieve strategically, and then we're going to deploy the tactics necessary to achieve it. They come in and they just start being a coach, and they're being a coach to a problem they haven't yet figured out what is that problem. But great enablement teams are creating centers of excellence. This is the new emerging term is these centers of excellence, which are digitizing the entire organization. And they're not afraid to step on toes. They're not afraid to look a VP of sales or a regional vice president of sales in the eyes and say, you are failing as a coach. I'm here to help you. Your team is failing. They're analog sellers. I don't care if your sales reps are too busy to be pulled out of the field. Don't give me that excuse. We are going to change that whether you like it or not, or I'm going to help get you out of this seat. So they're not forceful enough to make change. And that's going to be the future enablement leader.
How many teams do you think right now do have this enablement leader or this chief learning officer? I feel like it's not that many.
Any company that has greater than 100 sales professionals either has it today or is in the midst of hiring that role. Basically, enablement kind of starts around that 100 mark. But at the 100 to 500 sales professionals level, you're getting typically a fairly unsophisticated enablement program. No budget. Their budget is actually the headcount. So there hasn't been any additional budget other than the fact of the salary of the one or two people that are on that enablement team. And those are typically converted previous sales professionals who are now in a position to coach and train, but aren't given the proper toolkit to be able to do it. It's only when the companies get bigger that there's been a true adoption of a center of excellence. But the great ones, we're seeing companies with 100 to 200 reps treated as if they're Microsoft. And that's what it's going to take to be successful.
Nice. I love it. So here's a question that I think is kind of a hot topic right now is, should sales reps themselves be creating content on social?
Creating content, but in a completely different way of looking at it. One of the challenges is a sales professional, I'm sitting in front of a keyboard. If you were to ask the average sales professional, go write me a blog, it'd take you a whole week. I type at 30 words a minute, but still, for whatever reason, it would take me hours. And if it takes a sales professional hours, they're thinking of the opportunity cost of what they could do with the time, they wouldn't do it. What great companies are doing is putting together a situation, we call it an insights committee, where the sales professionals get together in a boardroom and they just start talking about pitfalls, challenges, objections, every customer story that's going on the phones the last week or month or in the boardroom with customers. But those conversations are recorded, and that recording is translated speech to text. And now the sales professional didn't need to write the article. They just needed to do what you're going to do with this very recording. You're going to take this very recording. It's going to be part of an event. And then what's going to happen afterwards is you're going to be able to slice this information down to text-based blogs. Well, the same thing applies. You take speech to text, give it to a copywriter, send it offshore for editing, And in 24 hours, you've just written yourself a blog. I could talk 500 words a second. So you just give a sales professional the voice, the opportunity of the voice, but without the laborious hard work of the writing. And you will be able to crank out content all day long.
Dude, I love that. I think there's nothing better than a sales rep actually having some of that thought leadership out there for themselves professionally and for your company.
We all want a voice. We're just not willing to pick up the shovel and start digging the ditch, which is the hand blog writing.
Yep.
But if I were to ask you, and we could even role play this right now, what is the biggest objection you're hearing right now about investing in account-based everything or account-based marketing? What is the number one objection on the phone you're hearing right now?
A lot of people just don't know where to begin. A lot of people are bought in, but they just all right, where do I start?
Why don't they know where to begin? Why doesn't it seem as intuitive to them, considering that they're most likely already selling to named accounts?
I think there's just a lot of noise in the space right now, and they just don't know. Do I start with this tool or that tool or you guys or not? They just have no idea. Or they think, I'm doing account-based ads. I already am doing account-based everything.
Exactly. So imagine we role-played like this for the course of 3 minutes. Mm-hmm. And you basically just took all this intellectual property that you have. You're talking to people all day long, and you've done more account-based centric processes within businesses than they will ever do in a lifetime. Mm-hmm. And all you're doing is dumping that intellectual property into a tool just like we're doing now, converting it to speech to text if you want a text-based blog, or you could always cut this into a video, right? That's what content can spin.
I love it. So let's dig into Inside Committee a little bit more. I love this idea. Who is really responsible for leading this?
So the average company, when they put together their very first Insights Committee, will typically have 5 to 6 people at the table. Who leads it is typically the digital content marketing team, will be the moderator of the event. In that room, I highly recommend you have 1 to 2 top-of-the-funnel sellers, LDRs, SDRs, BDRs, whatever you want to call them, because they're hearing the pitfalls, objections, the challenges at the interest and intrigue level, right? Like the why should I change? Then you're going to have 1 or 2 seasoned field sales executives who have done just more deals than anybody else. And so they know where the failure happens pre-project and post-project. Mm-hmm. If you have a subject matter expert, a sales engineer, a value engineer, get them in the room. They're the nerds. They're filled with all kinds of technical details that there are technical buyers of your solution, as an example, and they'll say, well, does it actually integrate with Salesforce, or does it integrate over top of any other marketing automation platform? So you need to create content that's highly technical, and then you need 1 or 2 people on the CS team. A customer success team is hearing what failure happens in the first 30 days of implementation. What must you avoid when you put pen to page and sign our contract? Because this is only the beginning of the journey. What does the journey look like? And you take all of those people in a room, and magic starts to come out. And the way that we run it tactically is we have sticky notes. And we give a role-based scenario. You'll put up a buyer persona. We'll call her Mary. We'll draw a photo on a whiteboard, make her look real, and we'll give a scenario. Mary had this happen. Now, everybody on a sticky note, picture your Mary. Think of all the things she's thinking of right now. What are her problems? And we start sticking them on the wall, and then we vote on what we really think she wants to hear about based on questions, and that's where we come up with our content ideas.
Nice. I love it. So it's based on what you're hearing most in the field. I think sometimes it's like the person who's screaming the loudest for a type of content is generally the content that gets made next, but not necessarily the content that should be made next.
Correct. So that's why the digital content marketing team is paramount to be the policeman of the event, because if they've done their job right, they actually know that there's content that is created that creates a lot of eyeballs and intrigue, and then there's also content that converts to leads and opportunities. And there has to be a balance between content that's going to be great for lead generation versus lead nurturing versus brand awareness versus brand salience. And so a great marketer will know, okay, here's our 30-day content calendar. I need a balance of certain topics, of certain ranges. So we're going to pick ones that fit within that predetermined box.
Mm-hmm. No, I love this. I love this. All right. What size of company do you need to be to start thinking about an insight committee? Should anyone and everyone?
2 employees. When I started this business with my business partner, George Albert, we were the insights committee, and my dog was on the floor. Our whole business, especially if you're trying to grow a business, inbound content marketing is critical. Account-based selling typically happens after you've identified your ideal customer profile and you've hit product market fit. And you know who you should be selling to. And now you just decide, do I sell to customers based on potential wallet share or based on sphere of influence to our own customer base? But if you can't answer those questions, you need inbound leads as well to determine who are great deals. So content marketing starts at the very beginning of the inception of your business.
Yes, absolutely. So we actually have something so we don't call it Insights Committee, it's just our content committee, but it's exactly what you're talking about here. It's amazing how it actually drives alignment between all of our teams.
Exactly. And what happens is marketing is hearing. The best part of this is if you have a team, if you have a culture where marketing is coming up with content in a silo, well, now all of a sudden when you put sales in the room, they realized, oh, now I know why sales aren't sharing our content, because they think it sucks.
Yeah.
Because it clearly has nothing to do with what they're talking about, because the content that they just came up with, we've never written anything about that subject.
Mm-hmm. So. Nice. No, I love it. Exactly. It solves so many problems that we didn't intend to solve through it, but now we have a lot better content. Our sales reps actually use the content that we create because they had a hand in saying what we should be creating. Customer success actually has good content that they can share with our customers, which helps sales and retention. And there's so many benefits to this content committee. I love it. All right. So if someone doesn't have a content or an insights committee right now, what's the first step for them to go out and start to create this committee?
Well, they need to themselves. I'm a believer, mindset, skill set, toolkit. So nobody's going to do this unless you do it yourself. So whether you're a sales professional working on a company that doesn't create content, or a marketer, or the CEO, you're going to have to start creating content. And you could be your own insights committee. If you struggle sitting down and writing content yourself, I discovered that about myself. I bought Dragon Dictation. I just talk into a computer, let it spit me out a blog. Or I found that I was more comfortable on video than I was writing an article. I made video-based content. Not getting going is a poor excuse considering how simple it is to create your own unique perspective. You don't need to come up with earth-shattering Albert Einstein-level intellectual property. Mm-hmm. You just need to have a unique insight on what's going on in your market, what's going on in your industry that your customers might not know about. That's all.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the first year or two of our business, we weren't creating a lot of unique insight. What we were doing was synthesizing other people's content and then kind of giving our own spin to it.
Got it. Love it. All right, so you're a sales rep. You have a great idea. You don't want to sit down and create it yourself. How do you approach marketing and get them to kind of listen to your ideas to get it actually created?
Yeah, and it's not going to be about saying, I want to do something. You will have to have done it and show them. So create a blog, like a blog article, written on Word document, and tell them the process and say, marketing, here's an article. Can we test this in the market to see if it worked? It took me 45 minutes to write it. I can create a schedule where I'll write one article every week. It takes me 45 minutes. Now it becomes real. Now marketing says, okay, I'm willing to fit this into our editorial calendar now. There's a blank spot for you once a week. But if you came to marketing and said, I have this idea and I'm going to create a blog, they're going to roll their eyes and say, yeah, sure you will. You have to, and also you need to give them something where they can say, wow, this is great. You have a unique perspective. Mm-hmm. You're going to have to actually do something.
No, exactly. I love nothing more than when one of our reps comes to my team and says, here's an article that I've written. Maybe it's not 100% polished, but it's workable. But if they come and say, hey, I've got this idea, can you run with it?
They want you to do all the work, yeah.
So coming up on the time here, what's one of the biggest mistakes that you see people make?
The biggest mistake that I see marketers make, we'll use that as an example, is they'll create lots of content and they'll view success on a metric that means nothing to the business long term. Marketers will measure themselves on clicks and likes and views and ideal customer profiles, leads coming in the system, or marketing qualified leads. There's a huge disconnect between that measurement and the percentage of sales quota attainment that every sales professional needs to hit. And so where that mistake leads to is marketing is measuring themselves on a completely different yardstick. It doesn't move the needle for the business. And then they're looking at the content they're producing and saying, we're doing our job. Look at how many leads and marketing qualified leads we're bringing in. And sales is saying, but it is not achieving the percentage of sales quota attainment I expected being driven inbound through the demand gen waterfall from our marketing team. And that relay of information needs the two sitting down and discovering what content of ours is actually being consumed by our customers, middle and later in the funnel. We call it the content consumption story, in between all of our phone calls and presentations and proposals, that's actually going to move the customer forward. And let's pinpoint what that content is, and sales professionals can then focus on sharing those pieces of content along the journey. And it changes the mindset of the salesperson to realize content is so invaluable all the way through the journey. Nobody just showed me that my buyer, in between when I gave them the proposal last week, they read an infographic and they watched 2 videos. And if that information was given back to sales, they would be completely bought into the value of content. But it's all going to have to start with marketing reevaluating how they're going to measure success.
Nice. Great. I love it, Jamie. I always like to end with one fun question that people may not find on social or Facebook or whatever. What's one of your favorite monikers? Maybe a nickname that people call you.
So when I was in high school, one of my nicknames was Shanky and Logic.
Shanky and Logic.
Shanky and Logic was that I had the ability of telling you something that made complete sense to me. I completely convinced myself that it would be true. And I could kind of spin these perspectives together that it sounded so to be true. And my friends would always call me, that's Shanky and Logic, right? So
nice. I love it. Awesome. Thanks, Jamie, so much. Where can people find out more about you and what you do at Sales for Life?
Yeah, so of course, www.sales4life.com. Connect with me on LinkedIn or Twitter. And if you're ever interested in learning more on how to transition those sales professionals of yours from an analog 20th century rep to a 21st century digital rep, we're the enabler to help you do that.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot, Jamie. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. You take care.
Thanks.
To ensure that you never miss an episode of the B2B Growth Show, subscribe to the show in iTunes or your favorite podcast player. This guarantees that every episode will get delivered directly to your device.
If you'd like to connect with B2B executives from all over the world, make sure to join our private Facebook community. There are some incredible conversations happening inside this group. To join, visit b2bgrowthshow.com/FB.
Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.